Hollywood has produced countless legendary actors, but very few have experienced the incredible highs and dramatic lows of Mel Gibson. For decades, he was celebrated as one of the industry's biggest stars, delivering unforgettable performances in blockbuster films and earning respect as an award-winning director. His work in movies like Braveheart, Lethal Weapon, Mad Max, and The Passion of the Christ helped shape modern cinema and made him one of the most recognizable faces in entertainment. Yet, despite his extraordinary achievements, one incident in 2006 changed the public's perception of him almost overnight. At the height of his career, Mel Gibson seemed unstoppable. Audiences admired his talent, filmmakers praised his dedication, and studios trusted him with some of the biggest productions in Hollywood. However, during the summer of 2006, a single night would become one of the most controversial moments of his life. After completing a high-profile interview and continuing his busy schedule, Gibson was arrested for driving under the influence on California's Pacific Coast Highway near Malibu. What initially appeared to be a routine celebrity arrest quickly turned into an international media storm. Reports of statements he allegedly made during the arrest dominated headlines around the world, triggering widespread criticism and raising serious questions about his future in Hollywood. Long before fame and controversy entered his life, Mel Gerard Gibson was simply a young boy growing up in a large family. Born on January 3, 1956, in Peekskill, New York, he was the sixth of 11 children. Growing up in such a large household meant that family played a central role in his childhood. His parents, Hutton Gibson and Patricia Gibson, encouraged strong values and maintained close connections to their Irish heritage. Even his distinctive names reflected that heritage, inspired by Irish saints and his mother's family roots. Entertainment and creativity were also present in Gibson's family history. His grandmother had been an accomplished opera singer, while other relatives achieved success in business. Although no one could have predicted that young Mel would eventually become one of Hollywood's biggest stars, the foundation for ambition and determination was already taking shape. A major turning point came in 1968 when Gibson's father received compensation after winning a workplace injury lawsuit. With the financial security provided by the settlement, the family decided to make a life-changing move from the United States to Australia. The relocation was motivated by several factors, including a desire for a fresh start and concerns about the Vietnam War draft affecting Gibson's older brother. At just 12 years old, Mel suddenly found himself adapting to an entirely new country, culture, and way of life. Australia would ultimately become the place where Gibson discovered his passion for acting. He attended St. Leo's Catholic College before pursuing professional acting studies at the National Institute of Dramatic Art in Sydney. Like many aspiring performers, his early years required dedication, hard work, and patience. He performed in stage productions, studied classical acting, and developed the skills that would later define his career. During his training, he appeared in productions of Romeo and Juliet, and even accepted unconventional theatrical roles that demonstrated his willingness to challenge himself as an actor. After graduating in 1977, Gibson began searching for opportunities in film. His first movie role came in the Australian production Summer City, where he earned only a modest paycheck. Although the project introduced him to filmmaking, no one involved could have imagined what would happen next. That same year, Gibson landed the leading role in Mad Max, a low-budget Australian action film directed by George Miller. His salary was relatively small compared to Hollywood standards, but the movie would become one of the most influential independent films ever produced. Released internationally, Mad Max surprised audiences with its thrilling action sequences, unique post-apocalyptic setting, and Gibson's charismatic performance. The film became a massive commercial success and transformed the young Australian-based actor into an international star. Rather than relying on a single successful franchise, Gibson continued expanding his career. He earned praise for his emotional performance in Gallipoli, demonstrating that he possessed dramatic depth in addition to action star appeal. Soon afterward, the Lethal Weapon series further elevated his popularity. His portrayal of Martin Riggs combined humor, vulnerability, and explosive action, creating one of cinema's most memorable buddy cop partnerships. Despite becoming closely associated with action films, Gibson refused to limit himself to one genre. He pursued dramatic roles in films such as Hamlet, while also finding success in romantic comedies like What Women Want. This willingness to explore different characters allowed him to maintain both critical respect and commercial appeal. Eventually, Gibson expanded his ambitions beyond acting. He began directing and producing films, proving that his talents extended behind the camera as well. His historical epic Braveheart earned widespread acclaim and won multiple Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director. Years later, The Passion of the Christ became one of the most talked-about films of its time, generating enormous box office success, while also sparking passionate public debate. Gibson later directed Apocalypto, another ambitious historical drama, praised for its visual storytelling and cinematic intensity. By the early 2000s, Gibson had established himself as one of the most influential figures in the entertainment industry. His career represented an extraordinary combination of acting success, directing achievements, and worldwide popularity. Few performers had managed to achieve excellence both in front of and behind the camera. However, public admiration can change quickly. Following the 2006 arrest, media coverage shifted from celebrating Gibson's accomplishments to examining his personal behavior. News organizations around the world reported extensively on the incident, and the controversy became one of Hollywood's biggest stories. Gibson later publicly apologized for his actions, acknowledged his struggles with alcohol, and stated that his comments during the arrest were unacceptable. Over time, he sought treatment and worked toward rebuilding both his personal life and professional reputation. Although the controversy significantly damaged his public image, Gibson eventually returned to filmmaking. He directed the acclaimed war drama Hacksaw Ridge, which received multiple Academy Award nominations and reminded audiences of his considerable abilities as a filmmaker. While opinions about him remain divided, his contributions to cinema continue to be recognized by many critics and film historians. Mel Gibson's story is ultimately one of extraordinary success, personal mistakes, public accountability, and resilience. From a young boy who moved across the world with his family to an international movie star, Academy Award-winning director, and one of Hollywood's most debated figures, his journey illustrates how fame can amplify both triumphs and failures. His legacy remains complex, marked by remarkable artistic achievements alongside controversies that continue to shape public discussion. Whether remembered primarily for his groundbreaking films or the events that challenged his reputation, Mel Gibson's life remains one of Hollywood's most compelling and cautionary stories. Few careers in Hollywood have experienced the incredible highs and dramatic lows of Mel Gibson's. For decades, he was one of the most recognizable faces in the film industry, earning praise as an actor, director, and producer. His films generated billions of dollars worldwide. His performances became legendary, and his directing earned the highest honors in cinema. Yet just as remarkable as his rise was the controversy that nearly destroyed everything he had built. Even today, Mel Gibson remains one of Hollywood's most debated figures, with supporters praising his artistic achievements, while critics continue to question his public controversies. Mel Gibson's story began long before he became an international superstar. Born in New York in 1956, he later moved with his family to Australia during his teenage years. Although acting had never been his lifelong dream, fate led him toward the National Institute of Dramatic Art in Sydney, one of Australia's most respected acting schools. There, instructors quickly recognized that Gibson possessed an unusual combination of charisma, emotional intensity, and natural screen presence. His breakthrough arrived in the late 1970s, when he landed the lead role in the low-budget action film Mad Max, produced with limited resources. The movie surprised the industry by becoming an international sensation. Gibson's portrayal of the determined police officer Max Rockatansky transformed him into an emerging action star almost overnight. The success of the original film led to sequels that expanded his reputation across Europe, North America, and Asia. While many action actors struggled to prove their dramatic abilities, Gibson demonstrated remarkable versatility. His performance in Gallipoli earned widespread critical acclaim and showed audiences that he was capable of much more than thrilling chase scenes and explosive action. Directors soon realized they had found an actor who could successfully balance emotional depth with commercial appeal. Hollywood soon came calling. During the 1980s, Gibson accepted the role that would define an entire generation of action films. Playing Detective Martin Riggs in Lethal Weapon, he created one of cinema's most memorable partnerships alongside Danny Glover. The chemistry between the two actors became one of the franchise's greatest strengths, blending humor, emotion, and spectacular action into a formula audiences loved. Each sequel reinforced Gibson's position as one of the biggest box office attractions in the world. By the turn of the millennium, Mel Gibson had become one of Hollywood's highest-paid actors. Reports suggested he commanded salaries that only a handful of stars could match. Major productions like The Patriot, Chicken Run, What Women Want, and Signs achieved impressive commercial success, with Signs becoming the highest-grossing film of his acting career. At that point, Gibson seemed unstoppable. Every studio wanted him, every project attracted attention, and his name alone could help sell millions of movie tickets worldwide. But while audiences saw a successful movie star, Gibson's interests were gradually changing. Rather than focusing only on acting, he became increasingly fascinated by filmmaking behind the camera. He wanted creative independence, believing that directing would allow him to tell stories exactly as he envisioned them. This ambition led him to establish Icon Productions, a company that gave him greater control over his projects. His directorial debut, The Man Without a Face, received respectful reviews, but it was his second film that completely transformed his reputation. In 1995, Gibson directed and starred in Braveheart, the epic historical drama based on the life of Scottish warrior William Wallace. The film captivated audiences with its emotional storytelling, breathtaking battle sequences, and unforgettable musical score. Critics praised Gibson's direction, and the Academy Awards recognized Braveheart with multiple Oscars, including Best Picture and Best Director. Winning the Academy Award proved that Mel Gibson was far more than a successful actor. He had joined the rare group of filmmakers capable of excelling both in front of and behind the camera. The victory elevated his reputation to an entirely new level and gave him the confidence to pursue projects that many studios considered too ambitious or financially risky. That confidence eventually inspired one of the boldest decisions of his entire career. Gibson chose to direct The Passion of the Christ, a film depicting the final hours of Jesus Christ's life. The project faced enormous skepticism before production even began. Many industry executives questioned whether audiences would watch a film performed primarily in ancient languages, while others worried that its intense depiction of suffering would limit its commercial appeal. Despite those concerns, Gibson remained committed to bringing his vision to the screen. When The Passion of the Christ premiered in 2004, it immediately became one of the most talked-about films of the decade. Instead of following a traditional biblical epic, the movie concentrated almost entirely on the final hours of Jesus Christ's life. Gibson made the unusual decision to have the dialogue spoken primarily in reconstructed Aramaic and Latin, believing that the languages would create a stronger sense of historical authenticity. Many industry observers predicted that such an approach would limit the film's appeal, but audiences proved them wrong. The film generated extraordinary interest around the world. Faith communities organized group screenings, while media outlets devoted extensive coverage to its release. At the same time, critics debated its graphic depiction of violence and raised concerns about how some viewers might interpret certain aspects of the story. The conversation surrounding the movie extended far beyond cinema, touching on religion, history, culture, and artistic responsibility. Regardless of where people stood, few could deny the film's enormous cultural impact. Commercially, the results were remarkable. The Passion of the Christ became one of the highest-grossing R-rated films in history, earning hundreds of millions of dollars at the global box office. It demonstrated that films centered on religious themes could achieve major commercial success when they connected with audiences. The movie also strengthened Gibson's reputation as a filmmaker willing to take creative risks that many others would avoid. The actor chosen to portray Jesus, Jim Caviezel, delivered a physically and emotionally demanding performance. During production, he reportedly endured numerous hardships, including injuries and long hours in difficult filming conditions. His portrayal received praise from many viewers, particularly among audiences who appreciated the film's emotional intensity and spiritual message. In the years following the movie's release, some commentators suggested that Caviezel's career never reached the level many expected after such a prominent role. Others argued that the reasons were more complex than a single film. Hollywood careers are shaped by many factors, including the types of projects actors choose, changing audience preferences, and decisions. Despite these setbacks, Gibson never completely abandoned filmmaking. Rather than focusing solely on acting, he returned to directing, where many believed his greatest strengths remained. In 2016, he released Hacksaw Ridge, the true story of World War II medic Desmond Doss, who saved dozens of soldiers without carrying a weapon because of his religious convictions. The film received widespread critical acclaim, earned multiple Academy Award nominations, and reminded audiences that Gibson remained a gifted director capable of creating powerful, emotionally engaging cinema. In the years that followed, Gibson continued directing and producing while selectively accepting acting roles. His production company remained active, allowing him greater independence than during his years as a traditional studio star. Although opinions about him remained deeply divided, his influence on modern filmmaking could not easily be dismissed. His body of work includes action classics, award-winning historical dramas, and films that continue to inspire debate years after their release. Looking back, Mel Gibson's career illustrates how extraordinary success and profound controversy can exist within the same life. He achieved accomplishments that many actors only dream of, winning prestigious awards and starring in some of the most successful films of his generation. Yet his public image suffered because of his own actions, changing the course of his career in ways few could have predicted. The story of the Passion of the Christ also continues to occupy a unique place in cinema history. For millions of viewers, it remains a deeply meaningful religious film. For others, it serves as a reminder of the debates that can emerge when art intersects with faith, history, and public opinion. Nearly 2 decades later, discussions about the movie Mel Gibson and Jim Caviezel continue to spark conversation around the world. Many viewers and historians believe that the Passion of the Christ sacrificed historical accuracy in favor of delivering an emotionally overwhelming experience. According to its critics, the film shifted attention away from the broader message of Jesus' life and instead concentrated almost entirely on graphic suffering and relentless violence. Although the movie was promoted as a faithful representation of the gospel, numerous biblical scholars argued that several scenes were not found in Scripture and were instead created through artistic interpretation. One of the earliest examples appears in the Garden of Gethsemane, where Jesus is shown praying before being confronted by a mysterious, cloaked figure symbolizing Satan. Moments later, a giant serpent crawls toward him, only to be crushed beneath his foot. While the sequence serves as a powerful visual metaphor, critics pointed out that no such event is described anywhere in the New Testament. The film continues to introduce fictional imagery during the brutal scourging scene, where Satan is portrayed carrying a pale, unsettling infant that smiles while witnessing Jesus' suffering. Religious experts noted that this disturbing figure has no biblical foundation and exists solely as a dramatic addition designed to heighten the horror of the moment. Historical debates continued throughout the crucifixion itself. The movie depicts Jesus carrying the entire wooden cross to Golgotha, whereas many historians maintain that condemned prisoners generally carried only the crossbeam. Scholars have also questioned whether crucifixion victims were always nailed to the cross, explaining that Roman execution methods often involved ropes, depending on the circumstances. Beyond the events themselves, the film's visual portrayal of Jesus also attracted criticism. Modern historians generally agree that a Jewish man living in the Middle East 2,000 years ago would likely have had a darker